My name is Garrett Hill. I'm the head judge for World Skate, and the following video is going to be the event judging recap for Wst Kitakyushu December 2025. By the end of this video, you're going to have a better idea on how the judges evaluated the runs in the single tricks. We're going to go over judging criteria, and you'll have a better idea on how the judging system works. Now, before we even get into the skating, it was known that going into this next season leading up to LA 2028, we weren't going to be living at the top end of the scale. We need to make room for better skateboarding. Skateboarding continues to get more and more difficult. The tricks advance, the difficulty advances, everybody knows that. So I think the newest change was going to be seeing slightly decreased scores. That we're going to dig into those in the single trick section, but the bar is being raised higher and higher every single event. So that was kind of one of the newer things that people will get used to. Everything has been brought down. It's not like we're just cherry picking certain runs and decreasing the scores. All the skating gets brought down to make room for better skateboarding and more growth by the time we get to the Olympics in LA 2028. All right, so starting with women's open qualifier. Straight out of the gates, right from the get-go, it's tough to be in Heat 1. It is for sure. When we are focusing on the run section, it carries a lot more weight now than it did before. You're only taking one of your best run scores, so we have to nitpick and really dig into the details of your run even more than we did before the Paris Olympic cycle because it just carries more weight. So we need to make sure that you are fulfilling all of the criteria. One thing that we did see a lot that people are going to have to adjust their strategy for is we're seeing a lot of flip tricks done on basically on flat ground. We're seeing it a lot in the women's division, and it just needs to be known that this isn't something that the judges want to see. I get that you're checking a box for the technical difficulty and you want to get a flip trick into your run, but doing a kickflip just to check a box off of a bank ramp to flat ground going very slow, you still have to remember that there's an overall impression category. And if you do this, it dulls out the overall impression. The overall impression now becomes you're just doing low technically difficult tricks on flat ground. So it's way better to do these tricks either clearing the entire pyramid or doing them off some kind of a drop or some kind of a gap. We really don't recommend these slow flat ground flip tricks just to check off the flip trick box in your run. In women's qualifier, we see a lot of missed opportunities. So what I mean by a missed opportunity is every time you hit a quarter pipe and you get off of your board and you turn around to reset. There's enough time to work on your quarter pipe tricks and work on your stall tricks. Even if you do an axle stall, it's way better than getting off of your board. There's two things that happen when you do this. One, you miss the opportunity to do a trick, and two, your overall impression, it just gets ruined. It ruins your flow and consistency, which is a judging criteria. It's a pillar, and your overall impression is that your run wasn't cohesive. If you stay on your board the whole 45 seconds, that's what you want. That is the best possible scenario. If you have to get off of your board and run to the other part of the skate park, that's a different story. But try to keep that to a minimum. We don't want to see you jumping off your board throughout your run. It's only 45 seconds. It's not much time to make a good impression. So there are certain lines that we like to pick out and almost make examples of to reinforce concepts that we've stated in the past. And Jessica Reddy gave us that opportunity to do that in this competition. She got a 30.07 and never hit the big section even once and still had a bail in her run. How did she get such a high score for that kind of a run? She did really technically difficult tricks that nobody else was doing. So we start with an ollie over the pyramid and a frontside boardside on the step-up bar, which is a modest start, but then things get pretty cool pretty quick. Even that nollie backside 180 does wonders for the overall impression. Straight into a 360 flip into the bank. Now no one's really doing that. They aren't really doing flip tricks into the banks. It really helps you stand out when you do tricks like this. Nollie backside heel flip, switch flip on the pyramid top. She didn't clear the whole pyramid top, but the attempt is there. The backside big spin flip, if she would have landed that, that's super cool. That's kind of what I'm talking about though. The difference between doing a switch flip, or a nollie backside heel flip rather, on the wedge to wedge bump and doing a backside big spin flip on flat ground. The nollie backside heel flip is going to move the needle on your score way more than the trick that you do on flat ground, 9 times out of 10, depending on the trick for sure. But this score, this 30.07 that she got, is a substantial score. It doesn't matter what kind of run you have. If you have a technically difficult run, you're going to get a good score. She didn't need to hit the big section in order to get a 30 on this run, and she had a bail in it. So there are certain runs that the judges like to reinforce certain concepts, and this is a perfect example of that. Please understand that if you are doing tricks that separate your skating from other people, it is going to set you ahead of the other riders. She's doing 360 flip off of the ledge into the bank, nollie backside heel flip on the wedge to wedge bump, switch flip over the pyramid top. She cased it, but it's still, no one else is doing that. So when nobody else is doing tricks like that, you don't have to hit the big section. You can still get a good score. All right, so another line that I want to point out is Mari Ribeiro from Portugal. She starts her run different from the other riders with an ollie down the 4-flat-4, which is always cool. The judges always like to reward stair set tricks, whether that's ollie, kickflip, or anything harder. We like to see it. Kickflip on the whole pyramid top, loved that. And see the difference? Like, she went into the 50-50 on the pyramid and her line just keeps going. There's no breakup. Into the nose slide on the bump to rail. Now we haven't seen anything like incredibly technically difficult yet, but it's strong and it's creative. The crooked grind into the bank, followed up by this. This 50 kickflip is phenomenal. The judges absolutely love to see that. Something that you need to keep in mind moving forward is that the judges really do take stock when you put in substantial filler tricks and don't put all of your weight and all of your emphasis in your run on the big section tricks. You don't need to only do hard tricks on the big section in order to get a good score. Your line needs moments and highlights throughout. So don't make the mistake of thinking that your line only needs to be really heavy big section tricks and then you're just checking boxes off of the list of the different categories of the judging criteria. There needs to be moments that make us remember your run. So I really like Gio Shin's line from Korea. And I like this line for a number of reasons. One, it's a great example of what a 50s line looks like. And two, it's a great example of like just playing it smart in open qualifier. She starts with a frontside feeble on the big handrail. So already straight out of the gates, we know that the caliber is shot up pretty high. Backside lip slide over the rainbow rail into a 50-50 on the quarter pipe, which is just keeping the flow going, which we really liked. The frontside blown slide shove it out is one of those like filler tricks that I was talking about earlier that keep the judges excited throughout your run. The backside tail slide to fakie, I don't know if she was trying to go to fakie or not, but I love that she was able to auto-correct that and still land with speed and with style as if she was trying to go to fakie. And then ending with the frontside tail slide to straight is such a cool idea. It's so much harder to do a tail slide to straight than it is to go to fakie. So she got a very well-earned 53.36. There were still things that were missing in this run, but she started it strong, she ended it strong, and she had a really cool highlight in the middle. And she stayed on her board for the majority of that run. So great way to just come out strong and make sure that your line makes the cut. What we've seen time and time again is that there's a lot of skaters that miss out on moving forward to the next round because they think that their run is good enough, but everybody else has like elevated the technical difficulty of their runs and their run just doesn't hold up anymore. So please be careful about doing these safety runs thinking that, oh, I got a spot in, I know that this is like a good run. It's like the judges normally are the only ones that watch all of the skating, all of the practice, all of the runs. There's a lot of coaches that should be doing that as well, and I know that there are, but unless your coach is dedicating all of their time to watching all of the skating to know exactly where your run stacks up, don't play it safe. Like really show up and go for it and make your name known and make your run known and let the judges know like you're here to win, you're here to go for it. So moving on from quarterfinal into semifinals, I always like to go back and revisit the runs that are in 17th and 16th place. We take 16 riders forward into semifinals. And normally those runs are incredibly similar. And it takes the judges a lot longer to make sure that they are getting those scores right and that they're giving out a fair score. That was definitely the case in Kitakyushu. We had Evie Pritchard and Coco Yoshizawa in that 16th and 17th spot, and we're gonna have a look at both of those runs now. Starting with Coco's run, this was a great run, you guys. Like Team Japan, they've got great coaching. Their strategy is really good. This run starts really strong with the kickflip on the pyramid, straight into that big spin frontside board slide on the step-up rail. Really cool backside tail slide, lots of speed here, coming out of the quarter pipe and rolling over to the big section. We have our first big section trick with that backside lip slide, done really clean. Keeping the flow going with a backside 50-50. The backside Smith grind is really cool. It's important to note here that like the judges, no matter what trick you're doing, they're looking to see the style and the execution. Style and execution is probably an underrated judging criteria that maybe we don't speak enough about, but the difference between doing a backside Smith grind and backside Smith grinding the entire length of the obstacle and holding on to it and then popping back in, you would be shocked at how much higher the scores are at runs that just like the tricks are just done so well. And that backside Smith grind that Coco did, it wasn't like it was bad, but we just want to see tricks that are held really long. We want to see them popped really high. Like I was saying in the beginning of the video, we have to dig into the details, and we are talking about style and execution as we go through the runs. So if you have the opportunity to hold the trick longer or pop it higher, please do that. So Coco ended this really clean run without any bails with a nose slide on the big hubba. I always like to say start the run strong and end the run strong. I think the biggest thing that changed the judge's mind on this was the way that it ended. Backside nose slide is really low on our trick ledger, and we're always kind of jumping back and forth between the trick ledger and our run scores just to make sure that there is some kind of similarity. And because that a nose slide or a 50-50 or a board slide is still in that very bottom of the list of basic tricks, the overall impression just came down. So this is what I mean when I say that it's not always about just doing any trick that you can do on the big section. It really matters what your trick selection is. I think if there was a more technically difficult trick done on even a smaller obstacle, it would have increased the overall impression. But nonetheless, Coco's an incredible skater, one of the best in the world, and it was a pleasure to watch her skate and do this. And we know that we're going to be seeing her crushing it at every event moving forward. So now we're going to focus on our bubble score run. This is Evie Pritchard from Canada. Congratulations to her for making it into the mix for semifinals. This was a well-deserving run. Starting it off with a feeble grind on the big rail, keeping it going with the blunt stall. The judges love that, man. When no one's doing that, and then straight into the kickflip on the pyramid top, and then a varial heel flip, like, that's such a great three-piece right there. The fact that she could string all three of those together, especially this kickflip, varial heel flip, the risk is always going to be rewarded by the judges. We know when you're doing a two-piece or a three-piece like that, that's really tough to do. And guess what, man? None of the other women were doing stuff like that. Like that three-piece alone, that backside blunt stall on the quarter pipe, kickflip and varial heel, that set her well and above the majority of the pack. And she earned it. You know, those are really hard tricks to do in a row. And she's still on her board, she's still moving, ending with that 50-50 kickflip on the really tall pyramid ledge. The risk is here in this run in order to justify this score and putting her into the semifinals. It just is. And again, she didn't need to hit the big section 2 times. She didn't need to hit it three times. She used the course really well. This is what flow means and what use of course means. A line needs to be varied. We don't want to see you just hit the big section. It's not the single trick section yet. You know what I mean? The run section is meant for the course. We want you to flow around the entire course and show us that you can hit everything here. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of different routes that you could take. This was an asymmetrical course, which allowed people to do these really cool figure 8 type loops through the course. And Evie did a great job of that. So congrats to Evie, congrats to Team Canada. It was great skating, great coaching. Looking at our top 3 scoring runs from this round of competition, Ju Yuixin, holy cow, man, starting your run with a kickflip frontside board slide on the big rail. That really got the judges' attention. Everyone was just so shocked and so stoked on that. Yeah, nice backside lip slide on the rainbow rail. The flow is really good here. It's super strong. Great way to start the run. Frontside blunt slide's really cool. Solid backside tail slide. The tricks here are they're really clean. They're done really well. She's sliding all the way to the end of the obstacles that she's hitting. There's flip tricks, there's variation here, ending with a frontside tail slide to straight. It's super cool. You see the difference that it makes when you do a really technically difficult trick in your run. I'm not saying that there was everything that the judges wanted. This isn't the perfect run by any means, but it is a shockingly technically difficult strategy to start your run with a kickflip frontside board slide, which is why this jumped up into the next point category. Not that this will always score in the 60s. It may be more, it may be less, depending on where we're at with the scale. But starting your run with a really technically difficult trick, you're going to get rewarded for that. All right, taking a look at Chloe Covell's line from Australia. Starting with that frontside nose grind on the big handrail. Super cool. That gap up to backside tail slide like that. It looks like she came off a little bit early, but recovered immediately with that really, really well done backside Smith grind on the big hubba. Line's got good flow. She's got good speed. Even that, like, that's what I'm talking about. Even the 50-50, like, step up, she grinded really, really far. That was like a 13-foot 50-50 on that round bar, transferring into that double bank. Really, really cool to see that. So again, this is a good example. Like, Chloe had speed, she had style, and she got up into the 60s. Like, she hit the big section twice, and she used the course well. There were still things that were missing from this run to justify putting it into the 70s or the 80s, but this is the kind of score that you're gonna expect to see if you do your tricks really well and you have a creative line. So congrats to her team. This is a really cool line. All right, Ibuki Matsumoto from Japan. This is our highest scoring run from this day of competition. And here we go, just showing up and being like, what's up? Frontside nose grind on that shootout ledge. I mean, there was a reason why there were barely any skaters hitting that. I mean, that drop was freaking tall. There was a lot of risk in that. That kickflip transfer from the wedge to wedge bump, again, that's 2 tricks in a row that are pretty heavy that none of the other riders were really hitting it that way. I think there may have been like 1 or 2 other skaters that hit that transfer on that wedge to wedge bump. And again, this like really long, like 15-foot 50-50 backside 180, that's a sick trick. And then you back that up with a kickflip 50-50 on the hubba. Like, that's great. This is a great line. There are moments throughout this line that keep the judges entertained. And this is what I'm talking about, making sure that you are including these moments of excitement and variety. Even a really long 50-50 backside 180, that's super sick. That thing is not easy to skate. The judges walk the course and we skate the course. We know exactly how hard some of these obstacles were. For instance, that red bump to ledge, we skated that and like, I almost focused my board grinding it. It's a big drop off. So don't think that the judges aren't aware of what the obstacles are and how sketchy they are. We know, all right? And we're gonna reward you if you hit the ones that no one else is skating. So those were some of the key points from qualifier and quarterfinal. And now the game changes, moving into semifinal, where we introduce single tricks into the mix. So moving into semifinals, we have a new format. And this is probably one of the first times that a lot of these riders experience this format. Before, you had 5 attempts at single tricks, and now you have 3. We're on the 2-3-2 format now. We take your best run, we take 1 best score from your single trick section, and then we combine those 2 scores together to make your final score. It changes the game completely, it changes strategy completely, and it makes it so that if you don't really show up and crush it in that single trick section, you're not going to move forward into the finals. So the first time that we see a single trick get landed is with Laura Zakova. Unfortunately, the run didn't come together. There were some bails. But then we see, in the single trick section, we see a frontside lip slide on the big rail. And here we're like, the binoculars are out. We are hyper focused on style and execution, because it's so much more important now that we give you an accurate score based on the way that you did a trick. The frontside lip slide is a cool maneuver. The back foot came off a little bit. That's how much we're nitpicking these kinds of tricks. And the score was a 57. Now, this is where people start to see what the scale is actually looking like. All of the like-minded tricks around a frontside lip slide are going to be in that middle to high 50s area now. I think that the lip slide used to live in the 60s and it went upwards from there. That's not happening anymore. Those more basic tricks that we've seen for a really long time, expect to see those down in the 50s, because those are now considered basic tricks. So anything that's close to a lip slide will be closer to that area. I think that that's a fair in reasonable place for tricks like that to go, because we're starting to see like unbelievably technically difficult tricks in the single trick section. So onwards and upwards. So figuring out the scale for this course was interesting. It wasn't difficult to come up with the scores for the handrail and the big section hubba because we've been doing that for so many years. But the shootout rail that was alongside the big hubba, and as well as this tall red drop off bump to ledge, it was trickier to figure out what to do with that. After we kind of spent some time looking at the spot and rolling around and skating it a little bit, we did decide to keep it relatively similar. I think we were going to inflate the scores that were done on that shootout rail because it was a little bit more risky than just doing it down the handrail, depending on the trick for sure. It's always dependent on the trick, but we thought it was fair to start in the 50s around that same grouping as we were in with the handrail. Something I want to point out here is that the judges do so much work with the trick ledgers. They're really cohesive, they are really built out, and they are really extensive, and they take days to make. They're never carried over from previous events. They're always unique to the skate park because there's no skate park that's ever always the same. So understand that when we go into competition on semifinals day, that trick ledger is a fully working ecosystem, and all those scores do make sense when they jump from obstacle to obstacle. So let's talk about some of the reductions that we were going to be seeing from previous events, from the Paris cycle to now, to the LA 2028 cycle. Wang Hui Zhang, her run unfortunately didn't come together. There were some bails in there, but really cool recovery on this backside tail slide on the big hubba. Now this got a 74, and I know for a fact that normally the backside tail slide on the big hubba used to live in the 80s. This is exactly the kind of reduction that we're going to be seeing moving forward. To get into the 80s for LA, in the judges' opinions, I mean, your trick has to be really good. There has to be something special, there has to be something unique. And to make it into the 90s, it needs to be pretty shocking. We never like really live in the 90s, so to come close to that, you really have to show up and do an incredible trick. So seeing a backside tail slide and like-minded tricks in the 70s will be something that will continue moving on in the single trick section. Taking a look at Daniela Terrell, her single trick, backside Smith grind on the big hubba. This got a 70.91. Again, now you start to see the similarities of the scores between this and a backside tail slide. Obviously a backside tail slide is harder than a back Smith, so we rewarded that with a couple more points. But again, the backside Smith grind and frontside feeble normally was like the entry level into the 80s, and that's not gonna happen anymore. We need to make room for more technically difficult tricks, which we are seeing every single time we have one of these contests. So this will be, again, a standard moving forward. This trick being in the 80s, unless the obstacle is absolutely wild at some of the parks moving forward, you won't see a backside Smith grind on the big hubba being in the 80s. I want to give a shout out to Funa Nakayama from Japan. It's always a pleasure to see Funa skate. She always comes with the coolest tricks. We always expect to see that signature front crook, so it was really shocking to see her mess that up in her first run, because I don't think I've ever seen her miss a front crook, which is pretty amazing odds after all these years. But she got redemption on it for sure with the front crook on the shootout really tall red ledge, that is for sure. We gave that a 78.74. Again, we're seeing those global reductions. We're seeing these tricks that normally scored in the 80s come down to the 70s to make room. I think the judges feel unanimously like it needs to be something unique to be into the 80s. If it's just a straight front crook, that's a hard trick, but it doesn't necessarily mean that should be in the 80s. if it's something like a front crook shove it or a front crook fakie, there needs to be that's where your heads need to be at, the skaters and the coaches. How do I make this trick almost, how do I reinvent it, or how do I add on to it to make it new or make it different? Because if everyone else is making their tricks harder and changing, then you got to do it too. But props to Funa, that front crook was really sick. Having a look at Momiji's run, it's always a pleasure to watch Momiji. She's got one of the best styles out there every single time. Played it pretty safe with her run, ending with the 50-50 180 is why she got placed in the 40s. If she would have ended with either a big section, one of her big section tricks, or one of her like pretty shocking, technically difficult tricks that she normally does, it would have shot that score way up. But I think that was a fair kind of place for that run to land. But having a look at her single trick, that crooked run nollie heel flip, we wanted to give this a high score, just to reinforce and send the right message that it doesn't matter what obstacle you pick. You don't have to do the hardest trick on the biggest obstacle. You can still get a really substantial score on the board by doing a hard trick on a smaller obstacle, and that's exactly what she did here. The crooked run nollie heel flip was great. We love seeing it. Not too many other riders are doing it, so we wanted to hook this up with a good score, so we gave it a 79.29. Jumping up into the 80s or maybe in the 90s, we're looking at like crook nollie varial heel, or kickflip crook nollie heel, things like this that we need to stack. Like a hard in, hard out will put you up into the 80s and the 90s. But still, you can get a great score on a smaller obstacle. So moving forward into the skaters who made the cut for finals, we had Nanami Onishi. Her run was really cool, man. It was really strong. She had really great flow. Her trick selection was cool. She had some really good big section tricks and also had some really cool filler. And that's really what put her forward. It seemed like she took more risks in her run. And this is what I mean by playing it safe in your run and putting in tricks that unfortunately dilute the overall impression. If you do a safety run of any kind in semifinals, you're playing a risky game. You can't take an easy route to get into finals. Like, your run has to be strong, and you have to really show up. So I hope that the skaters understand that moving forward, that there are other skaters that are going to be absolutely sending it, and they're going to do tricks that you did not see before in the other round. So that run you thought was really safe and cushy and could for sure get you forward, it's really hard to predict that because you're really rolling the dice when you do that. So I hope that skaters will show up and give it 100% in their runs, because that run score is what put her through into the finals. Regarding Nanami's single trick, that backside 5-0, this is a good example of making deductions based on execution. Execution is everything in the single trick section, and we're going to make some pretty proper deductions if you don't get into your trick right. And this backside 5-0, she was leaned forward really far. She knows that's no secret. So we did take some points off for the execution on this one, but it was still enough, barely enough to get her to squeak forward into the finals. But we love to see that. We like a close game, Similar skating is going to get similar scores, and at the end of the day, it's just who can do their trick better and who can stay on their board. It should be a dogfight moving forward from semifinals onwards, and we were happy to see that. These were similar, technically difficult skating, and yeah, congrats to her for making it forward. Okay, so Yuanling Zhu, great example of what an 80s trick will look like. Switch 50-50 on a round long rail. Yeah, that'll do it. No one's doing switch. So if you can find your lane and own that lane, then you're gonna get hooked up for it. So congrats to her. It's awesome that she could do this trick. She is pushing skateboarding forward. and that's what the judges are going to reward. If you're doing the same tricks that we've seen for years, it's going to be really difficult for you to jump ahead of the rest of the pack, man, because I mean, people are pushing it. They're doing new tricks. So if there is any strategy to move forward towards LA 2028, is find your lane, man, and just own it. Switch 50/50s on handrails, not something that people are doing. So that's the right recipe right there. Having a look at Yumika Oda's single trick, kickflip front board on the big handrail, getting an 82. This is a low 80s trick now. It used to live in the mid 80s, but we think it's fair for that natural kind of decrease to happen and in this way. So it's a hard in, and normally we're kind of looking at it like, is it hard in or hard out? And is it justified? Does it push skateboarding forward? And since the majority of the riders aren't doing kickflip frontside board slides on the big handrails, it's still justified to be there. This number, you may see this continue to decrease as we move forward in the season, but this is that kind of global reduction that I was talking about. For Ibuki Matsumoto's single tricks, she did the kickflip front board almost as a safety, it seemed like, as a strategy move, and she got that same 82 range score as we had already given out. So how a trick ledger works moving forward, when she now does this kickflip frontside 50/50 on the dropout ledge, we're looking at that kickflip front board. Is this kickflip frontside 50 on this obstacle harder than doing a kickflip frontside board slide on the handrail? I would agree, and the rest of the judges agreed. It's not massively different, but she got, I think, about 2 points more for doing this kickflip frontside 50/50. And that's just how judging works. That's just how a trick ledger works. Every score that we give has to be rooted in fact. So if we gave an 82 for a kickflip frontside board slide on the handrail and this is harder, within reason, we have to inflate this score, and that's why she got an 84. So having a look at Liz Akama's line here in semifinals is such a great example of what the judges like to see, especially in the middle of a run when she does the barley grind on the rainbow rail. What a great idea, what a great trick selection. And that got her into the high 60s. So the middle of your run is just as important as the beginning of it and the end of it. You gotta put in at least one highlight in the middle of your run in order to have it stand out. Because if you're doing tricks that everybody else is doing, man, your run's gonna get lost in the sauce. Like, you've got to include a special trick somewhere in the middle of your run that's unique, that's hard, that's memorable. This is the perfect example of this. So if I were competing in these competitions, or if I was a coach, I'd be making sure that my skater was working on some cool middle of your run trick, and I would specifically train for that part of your run because it's so important. So a concept that we still were seeing in semifinals regarding runs was we saw a lot of runs without any flip tricks at all. And we also saw runs that had just some flip tricks on banks to flat. Your run score is going to be a lot lower than other skaters that do flip tricks on substantial spots, whether that's over a pyramid top or a gap or whatever. The judges, you got to flip your board. The judges kind of look at big spins the same as flipping your board because the risk is arguable. I don't personally look at it that way, but I like to see you flip your board, and I want to see you do it on a proper spot. So moving forward, man, don't be surprised if your score is a lot lower if you don't flip your board. So moving into the finals, this is where the judges really nitpick the runs, and we really focus on all of the different judging criteria. So starting with Shenshi Kui, I think that this is a really good run to speak to regarding execution, because she starts with a really great trick. The switch lip slide is super cool. It's obviously different doing any switch tricks in the women's category is a great strategy. But when we really look at the execution, unfortunately, it just wasn't there to justify putting this kind of a run into the 70s. So that's what we look at. If your tricks aren't landed well enough, that's what we're comparing it to the other riders that we're seeing on the field. And if they land their line cleaner, even if the technical difficulty isn't there and it makes sense to do that, they're going to get a higher score. So it is all about how long you grind for, how well you land, how much speed you have. We really need to focus on this moving forward, because at LA 2028, we can't have these runs that are just done sloppy. Like hard tricks done sloppy, it doesn't matter to me or the judges. You need to do your tricks well, and you got to find ways to improve your style and work on the way that you're doing your tricks. Even simple tricks done well are more impressive to watch than hard tricks done bad. Another point to make on execution, we have Liz Akama's run in the finals. The 180 50-50 shove was as close to a bail as you can get. And that's really what kept this run in the 60s as opposed to jumping up into the 70s. I mean, we gotta look at these things. If like speed and execution are so important when it comes to your runs. Like the judges do not want to see slow skateboarding. You can go slow if you're doing a hard single trick, but man, you better like figure out how to increase your speed and just increase the excitement in these runs, because slow skating not only reduces your overall impression, but it just reduces the amount of tricks that you're going to be able to get in a 45-second window. It's not much time. So Ji Shin's line from Korea in the finals, super cool. We love this line. And this is the difference between a line that was in the 60s and a line that was in the 70s. We see these strong executed runs that have upgrades as well. She started this run really strong. In the K-flip backside lip slide upgrade from semis that she didn't do, that she did in the finals, was just really cool. It made sense to put this run into the 70s. She was unfortunately just outside of the podium cut, but man, she did an incredible job. So props to her and to Team Korea.
Slide coming down to this last trick. Sprinting over, 5 seconds on the clock. It's going to be tight. Frontside, tailside, taking it to fakie. There's the variation.
All right, starting to zoom in on our podium. In third place, we had Chloe Cavell. Congrats to her, super sick. It's always fun watching Chloe skate. We were comparing this run to Shin Shikui's run. We felt like a lot of the tricks are kind of similar. A lot of the technical difficulty was kind of the same. We just think like the style and the execution that Chloe had was on top, and it outweighed Shin-Shi's skating, which is really, again, why it's so important to land your tricks clean. But a super creative line, the way that she hit the double bank spot, the transfers and stuff like that were super sick, and the judges really liked that. So even though her run didn't boost her up into the 70s, she was still able to make the podium because she came through heavy on the single trick section. So congrats to her, that was very cool. All right, looking at our second place run, we've got Yumika Oda. Very cool to see her on the podium. This run at that 71, it made a lot of sense to put this run there. It started really strong and ended strong, especially with the overcrook on the handrail. Nobody else is doing that, man. So congrats to her. It was great skating and great strategy. We knew that this run needed to be close to the first place run, and it shouldn't be that far away from it, because we wanted that to be a little bit more scrappy when it came to the single trick section. So man, she was probably more close than she knew to taking it home. But yeah, great skating, and congrats to them.
Kind of thought she was gonna give that to us, but she might have something big for the finish.
Oh yes, she has.
And of course, we have our winner, Ibuki Matsumoto. Phenomenal skateboarding, lots of really cool moments. Came ahead in the finals with the highest scoring run score with a 73.26. This is not far away from Jiu's score or Yumika's score at all. And we didn't think that it was like, it didn't have absolutely everything that it needed to go into the 80s. There were still criteria that was missing from this run. Don't get me wrong, this is difficult skateboarding, but if you do technically difficult moves, we're going to reward you for it, but we're not going to create some impossible gap for other riders to not make up for in the single trick section. I think before in other competitions in previous years, riders would pull ahead and go into the single trick section with 7, 8, 9 points difference, and it would become very difficult, if not impossible, for skaters to fix that debt and come back and get ahead of them. So the judges really are going to give you a similar score to other riders. There may not be much room in between a couple of points, if that. So there will definitely be shakeups in the leaderboard, and definitely there will be windows of opportunity for riders that go into the single trick section with an opportunity to pull ahead and to win the competition. But congrats to her, man. This run was heavy. All right, so focusing on this single trick section, this was such a cool single trick section to watch because there were some unique obstacles on the course. It made for a pretty exciting single trick section. So looking specifically at Yuanling Zhu from China, her single trick, this switch frontside nose grind, oh man, this switch frontside nose grind, the judges absolutely loved it. It got an 87.40. And this is the perfect example of what I'm talking about with pushing women's skateboarding forward. This move pushes the sport forward. It just does. And we are going to hook you up for that big time if you do a trick like that. Switch frontside nose grind definitely will do that. That will be one of those tricks that easily remains in the mid to high 80s moving forward, because I mean, there's just got to be time for people to catch up unless multiple people start doing that. Which I don't anticipate, a well-earned score. So congrats to this. So keeping with these high 80s scores, we have Nanami Onishi's backside 50-50 kickflip out on the big handrail. This was another one of those high 80s scoring tricks in 88. I feel like at previous events, this one probably would have cheated into the 90s, but moving forward, a 50-50 kickflip out on the handrail isn't a 90s trick anymore. There's got to be something else to it, whether that's like, you know, nollie 50-50 in or something else. It needs to be, it needs to grow in order for that to be into the 90s. But man, an 88 is an absolutely gigantic score. So this is the trend. You know what I mean? If you zoom out and you look at all these scores, you'll start to see the trend of it. But backside 50-50 is unique. We don't see a lot of women going backside in. Normally, we only see frontside 50-50 kickflip out. So that was really cool to see. All right, so let's talk about our top 3 podium single tricks. Starting with Chloe Covell with the front blunt, big spin out. This was the only 90 that we saw in the entire women's competition, and what an amazing trick to do. That was the first time any of the judges had seen that in competition, so props to Chloe, man. That's such a sick trick. She did it perfect. It fit the criteria. That's what we're looking for. It checked all the boxes, you know what I mean? Like a trick that we haven't seen before, a trick that's technically difficult, done on the big section, and done perfect. What more could we ask for? You know what I mean? It's a hard in and a hard out. Front blunt big spin. Super, super cool. All right, in second place, Yumika Oda, kickflip frontside feeble. Super tough trick, man. It got an 89. It's close. It's on par with that front blunt big spin. The only reason that this didn't score above it is because we have seen kickflip front feeble, It's not new, and this is how it works, guys. Like, this is the only way to do this, and the only way to do this in a fair way. We don't chop the head off of this score for this kickflip front feeble, but we make a little bit more room for the tricks that haven't been done. So, for example, if this is a kickflip front feeble back 180, this would go above that front blunt big spin because it's technically difficult. It's hard in and hard out, as opposed to hard out. So this is how it works. It's not rocket science, but we're trying to be as fair as we possibly can to the riders, and be consistent with our messaging. And we always want to reward new tricks, and this is how it shows. This is how it's going to reflect. It's going to get a higher score than other scores. All right, and our first place winner, Ibuki Matsumoto, kickflip frontside nose grind on the drop ledge. Such a gnarly trick. So some insight on how the trick ledger works and what the judges are looking at. We know that we gave her an 84.85 in semifinals for doing a kickflip frontside 50-50 on that same spot. So it only made sense to bump it up a few points. Doesn't make any sense to bump it up like 6 or 7 points, because a kickflip frontside nose grind isn't 6 or 7 points harder than doing a kickflip frontside 50-50, but there has to be some increase. And we thought that this was a more than fair increase. And it just so happened that that was enough to edge her into first place. And that's what we look at. Those trick ledger scores, they don't change. The run scale changes from event to event based on what we're seeing, from round to round rather than event to event. But those trick scores, we're looking at what you did in semifinals, like, because I know personally for a fact that that's what the coaches are going off of as well. So we're not trying to confuse any of the riders or any of the coaches when it comes to that single trick section. We are going to be viciously consistent when it comes to that scoring. All of the scores that go out are based off of fact and based off of data that we already have, or that we know has already been posted. So the judges worked incredibly hard. I'm proud of the scores that went out. It's never easy, guys. Like, this job is wildly difficult. If I haven't been in skating since I was 10 years old, I wouldn't feel capable of helping to do this job. But it feels good to get scores that are fair, and we try our best. Thank you for watching. Thank you for competing. Congrats to the women, every single woman that competed. Man, what you do for skateboarding is so important. So please keep it up. And we're here as a resource to you whenever you need us. So thanks, take care, and we'll see you at the next one.